It's coming back and starting with the inner journey and getting that self-command, being able to shift our being. And I truly believe this, and I see this working with my clients. We always have an inner stance. Choose the steps, choose the priorities, choose the news ideas that are going to build the future business. And so then everybody agrees as a leadership team that this is what we're doing. Because what I do see is that sort of chaos of, hey, here's a new idea, let's just implement it now.
Hello, Steve. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Mark. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Peak Performance Perspective, where we help entrepreneurs master health, wealth, and relationships. I have to start off by asking, as a certified EOS implementer and a business coach, what does peak performance mean to you?
That's a wonderful question, Mark. I think what comes up for me in my work is actually it's an image of Pete Carroll, the coach of the Seattle Seahawks. And he talked about when they were again win the Super Bowl for the second time. And in the final, last seconds of the game, they didn't, right? They lost their second Super Bowl. And he talks about this idea of being the epitome of joy in that moment. Right? That he had to just take in this immense thing that had just happened, take it in some ways, push it down inside, but feel it, but then realize that he had to be there for his team. And that to me, that self-control, that mastery is peak performance, right? And there's so many things that go into the ability to be able to realize this thing's happened. I am the leader of this team and I need to maintain my poise and to go help the team, right? To be there for the team. That's somebody I think who was operating at his peak performance.
In a world where it's even difficult to put the donut down, how does one develop such level of self-control and mastery?
It takes work. It takes work, right? It's dedication. I think it comes from starting off with this idea of not necessarily having things. So you reference a donut, right? It's like this idea of there's a lot of external things out there that people want to have, even in terms of our fitness, right? And we want to be strong. We want to be going to the bodybuilding competitions and things like that. Those are goals. Ultimately, we talk about reverse engineering being able to get goals, right? The things that we want to have come from the actions that we do in the world, all right? I don't believe that you can sit on a couch and eat Doritos and drink Pepsi and manifest $1 million. You've got to actually go and do things in the world to get the things that you want. So reverse engineering up from that. Okay, so doing things, okay, taking action. What influences the things that we take action on? And this is where the magic is, because it's coming and looking inside. Our thoughts and our feelings, inner stance, where we're coming from, all of these things influence the actions that we take in the world. And those actions influence the things that we get to. So when we talk about this larger question of how do we go about developing poise, how do we go about developing peak performance, to me, it's coming back and starting with the inner journey and getting that self-command, being able to shift our being. And I truly believe this, and I see this working with my clients. We always have an inner stance. The key is that we can see it and then we can shift it. We can choose to shift who we are being in a certain moment, in a certain situation to be able to get what we want. This is a simple concept, not easy to do.
In your previous life, you were designing yachts for world-class racing teams. You've been around the pinnacle of success. And in an environment like that, it's not just individual performance, but the importance of being in the right team, being led by the right leader. What are the most important lessons you learned about leadership through this experience?
Yeah, this is great because it's really been the journey that's informed me for about the last 20 years of my life. So I worked with some amazing teams, right? They're winning round the world yacht races, these races that go for months around the world. And to be able to, some of these teams that I experienced, there was a feeling like when you came in and started working with that team, this feeling that everybody's there and on the same page, everybody's there for the same reasons. People have high trust, they've got each other's backs, right? And they're really truly bonding together as a team. And so where does this come from? It comes from the leaders of that team creating that environment. right? Creating the culture of the team. And in particular, there was one team I worked with that really exemplified this. But they started off with a core of the team that was believed in the same things. They were high trust together. And then as they added new people into the team, they would make sure that new person coming into the team was a good fit with the existing group. So they maintained their culture. And that to me, the leadership of really being able to see, like, how do we truly bring together a core of a team and maintain that and go and do something really amazing. In contrast, I worked with other teams where I really saw perhaps this is a little bit like more like NFL football. We've got a lot of budget. So we just go get the free agents, get the people out there, and then bring them into the room together. And that didn't necessarily mean that everybody worked together, right? Because the team had been built using another criteria rather than just really forming the culture of the team. And so I really saw that contrast, that when people aren't in the room for the right reasons, when they're there for something else other than perhaps the victory of the team, they're there for their own personal reasons, it doesn't work. And I think that then that is something that then trickles down through the whole rest of the team and the organization, because I think people pick that up. The leader of the team is not there for the team. The leader of the team is there for something else. People sense that because that leader's, once again, that leader's being, right, that leader's inner stance is not fully aligned with truly being there for the greater good of the team. And people see the actions that person might take not aligned with the greater good of the team. And so that really makes it very difficult for a group of people to come together and do something really difficult. The interesting thing for me is at the time, I was just seeing this, right? I was a designer and an engineer working with these teams, supporting them, seeing this, and not really understanding quite what was going on, but it was my motivation to go off and learn. I can learn, like, the people must be able to bring together high profile teams because I do work with them, right? And I see they can be successful. I just didn't know really the mechanics of how that happens. And now, many years later, having studied this and been a student of it, this is what I do with my clients, is really help them show up for the greater good of the team and the organization.
Talking about a culture within a team, importance of a culture within a team. These are all nice topics to talk about when things are going well. But the true culture and dynamics of a team is tested during these challenging times. Can you share a story about a challenging moment with a racing team that shaped your approach to team dynamics today?
Yes, there's always, I feel like every campaign and every team, there's always that moment with things like the America's Cup. We spend years researching and pulling together all of the top designers, top builders, top crew, and you spend years putting together the design, and then you go out there and race one, right? The starting gun goes and you're lined up against the competition, and it's all there right then. It's all there in terms of, is your boat speed there? Can the boat point? How's the competition doing? And I just, way back in the early 1990s now, working with a team, many years of effort, and we get to that point, right, where we're in the semifinals going towards the finals, and we're up against a competitor where they were a strong competitor, and we've been doing great, but then we line up against the competition. They were an Italian team. I was working for a New Zealand team, and they were just going faster, pointing higher, and doing really well. But what I saw out of that then is that's when, as you're talking about, that's the crucible, that's the pressure came on, and that's when we really did. I observed the conflicts starting to arise in the team, right? And I think ultimately, remembering back, this is a long time ago now, but just that the skipper ended up getting replaced after they'd lost a couple of races. So that just, once a team, I think, gets into that spiral of trying to point the finger of blame, looking at all of these things, then I think that the confidence starts going out of the team. And so I saw that and experienced that. And that really, from a long time ago, really informed my experience of that. And so I think that comes all the way forward to where I started with the Pete Carroll example is, okay, we've got this amazingly bad things just happen, but if the leaders can hold it together and not start blaming and pointing fingers, which he easily could have done, instead approach it with grace, right? And poise and really figure out like what's the right thing done for the team. Very early lesson, long time ago, but it really has stuck with me just seeing that.
When trying to be a leader, we have to play many roles. One of the roles is the role of a strong person, a person with a vision, a person who's not going to stop at any obstacles and let the team get through them. Once in a while, when we're trying to be this strong, we become cold. How does what role does vulnerability play in effective leadership and team performance? And how does a leader maintain that strength while being open and vulnerable to the team?
Yes, no, I think this is a huge thing that you're talking about, Mark. And I've seen in many different situations that sort of stance, I suppose, that a leader goes into, which is, okay, I'm making all the decisions here. I do what I say, not what I do, and things. And ultimately, the burden of that, the weight of that, making all of the decisions. And so in the work I do with my clients in the entrepreneurial operating system in EOS, we really go into getting the team to break through those sorts of walls and to be able to have, as you're talking about, the vulnerability, the open and honest discussions. So actually very recently, I was working with a team. They're a $500 million business. And I take my clients through an exercise that's called the One Thing exercise. The way this works is we take a candidate and they're up. And so I get their permission. Does the rest of your colleagues have your permission to be 100% open and honest with you? And they say, yep. Okay. All right. So then we go into the exercise and first pass around the room. Everybody else gives that leader feedback about one thing that they really admire about that person. And it can be very moving listening to what comes out of that. In the second pass around the room, that leader's colleagues give them a piece of feedback. What's one thing that person can either start doing or stop doing for the good of the team? And the leader just needs to take this in, listen, write it down. They're allowed to ask a clarifying question, but they're not allowed to start getting defensive and arguing back and things like that. They just need to take the gift of feedback. And then at the end of the exercise, after everybody's had their turn at this, then each individual reflects on the feedback that they got and comes up with a statement. In 2025, I commit to, and then fill in the rest of the sentence. And then we come back to that every quarter. But where I'm going with this is a few weeks ago, I did this exercise with this team on day one of annual planning, and the CEO took his feedback in. It was actually a wonderful exercise. I told everybody, like, it's just one thing. They ended up with paragraphs of good things and a few sentences of things that they could start or stop doing. It was good. They needed this. They went home, they came back the next day, and as I'm doing the check in the morning, the CEO says, I was reflecting, I was talking with my wife. I've never had this before. It can be a very lonely thing, being a leader of an organization and having to be perfect all the time, right? And making these decisions. And what this exercise did was finally he got the gift of feedback about things that he could do better. And it to your point, it just really does allow him to be vulnerable, right? To be able to just take that in and listen to it and then accept it and reflect it back. And he saw the incredible gift that was to him. To fully answer your question, to be able to go into this, there are exercises and things that we can, in a safe environment, break down some of those walls a little bit, to be able to allow some of this feedback to come in an environment of respect, love, support. And this team I was working with, and most of the teams I work with, they have very high trust, right? They've been built in the crucible of fire of building their businesses. But we need to just create that environment where we can have a little bit more of that direct feedback. And it really just helps everybody realize we're just all human, we're all here, and we can get better. So it's one of many exercises I take teams through.
How do you balance structure with the flexibility that is needed for creativity and innovation in business? Because almost someone would say that structure, discipline kills creativity and innovation.
Yeah, there's a lot in that. And this is one of the things actually I love about the work I do with EOS, because we use a structure to help with that structure of how we balance structure and creativity. And in particular, we talk about what we call the visionary and integrator relationship. So visionary being the CEO, typically the CEO of the organization. There's a lot of psychology, I think, that VIs bring. They are the creative people. They do have 20 new ideas before breakfast every morning, right? What about this? Then they're looking at the horizon, and they really are bringing in all of this information and constantly thinking about where the business should be going. Now, unchecked, this creativity and enthusiasm can cause chaos in the organization, right? So we in EOS, we balance that out with a role we call the integrator. The integrator is like a COO. They're the person who keeps the trains running on time. They beat the drum for the organization. They're the glue that holds the leadership team together. And so that visionary integrator relationship really allows a balancing of the creative, let's go type ideas, and we've got to tell people what they're doing, and we've got to let them do it, and we've got to produce a product, deliver a service, and get it done. There's a balance there. And then structurally within EO, we get the team every quarter to look at doing two things essentially. Number one is executing the current business really well, right? So what are we doing to deliver our product, deliver our service really well? On top of that, we talk about priorities, rocks, like what are we doing to build the future business as well, right? We've got a balance between current business and future business. So the structure we put in place is, yes, bring the leadership team together once a quarter, and once a year we do, as I said, a big 2-day annual planning, and decide what it is over the next year and then over the next 90 days. What are the priorities? What are the things that we're going to tackle to build the future business? Now, the foundational sort of information we use to build that is something we call the issues list. And so we just want to create this environment in the business where all of these great ideas, we get them written down somewhere. All these opportunities, get them written down on a list. So then we can come once a quarter, look at the list and say, okay, what are we going to tackle off of it to build that future business? So we create a system for a group of people to work together to get what they need to get done to execute the current business and still choose the steps, choose the priorities, choose the news ideas that are going to build the future business. And so then everybody agrees as a leadership team that this is what we're doing. Because what I do see is that sort of chaos of, hey, here's a new idea, let's just implement it now. Lower down in the organization, people have a harder time dealing with that, right? So we put a structure in place to, in a measured way, bring creativity and bring those new ideas into an organization. And it really works.
Throughout all these careers and all these practices and all this learning, how has your inner journey evolved? What practices have been the most transformative for you in your own life?
Great question, Mark. Thank you for asking me that. I've been on an incredible journey over the last few years myself, right? As I talked about at the beginning of our conversation, to me, showing up as a leader means looking inside and starting there first. And I was just doing a talk about this the other day, but there's a sense, I think it's a quote from Stephen Covey that says something like, the results that you are getting come from the systems that you currently have in place. And to me, when I use the word systems, there are systems internal, like the way you think about things is a system, right? And we can just look at these systems as either they're working and they're helping you, or they're not working, right? If you're not showing up, if you're not able to maintain your poise in difficult situations, then there is some system in your mental thinking that is not working. I've been working with coaches myself, right? I read a lot of books, listen to a lot of podcasts, but fundamentally, I'm always like, every time I find some system of mine that's not working, it's not about me, it's just my system's not working. So what's a system that does work? I look at people that I'm inspired by, that I admire, and look at what are their systems. Okay, that seems like an interesting system. I'll bring it in and apply it to myself. So one interesting example, if you like, Dr. Peter Attia, who lives in Austin there near you, talks about this visionary goal called the Centenarian Decathlon. And so in his idea, you look forward to when you're 100 years old and you'd write out like, what would you like your life to be like when you're 100? Do you want to be able to bend down and pick up your great-granddaughter as she comes barreling into your shins, pick her up and give her a hug? Do you want to be able to put your bag bag in the overhead bin of the airplane because you're still jetting off around the world? Like, what does your life look like? So write that down. And then Peter Attia has four main things that you need to look at in terms of your strength, your stability, your aerobic fitness, and your anaerobic fitness, right? That all contribute towards getting to the centenarian decathlon. Great stuff. My system, even though I'm like, yes, I want to sign up for that. My system was I'll get up in the morning, I'll put my running shoes on, and then maybe I'll go find a workout routine on YouTube and I'll follow that, or I'll go out for a run, or I'll do something else. In other words, I didn't really have much of a system. About a month or so ago, I was examining all of this. I was having a clarity break and really realizing this isn't working. My current system is not working. And I had been following a coach online who does this kettlebell training program. And so I realized I'm going to change my system. And so I signed up with this coach and his program now. And my system is he's setting my workouts. I get up. I open up my app, there's my morning workouts, and I follow it. And it's working. Now I have a system. And anything like that, I believe anything in your life, you can just look at what's going on now. Is it working? No? All right. It's just a system. We need to put a different system in place. And I think you can do that for mental fitness, for physical fitness, for your business, for your life, your relationships, all those sorts of things.
We all know what intelligence means. We know what the word positive means. What is positive intelligence and how has it shifted the way you coach clients?
Yeah, so positive intelligence to me it's when your mind, when you're thinking, when the way you see the world is working and supporting and is beneficial for you. And so what I mean by that is, as I talked about your inner stance, right? How you see the world, how you see others, how you see yourself, how you see the world. Are you a person who sees the world through abundance and love? Do you see that there's enough out there, there's opportunity? Or do you wake up in the morning and your mind goes off down the racetrack of scarcity and fear? There's not enough. What's going on with my business? What's going on with me? What's going on with my relationships? So my point in that is we can choose. There are things that we can do. We can shift our inner stance to choose, are we going to wake up in the morning with abundance and love, or are we going to wake up in the morning and go down the scarcity and fear route? So I actually, last year, I put together all of my latest learnings and insights on this and made a course. I call it the Morning of Distinction. And I've got 10 exercises in there that I have found very useful for myself that get my mental train going in a way so that it benefits me. And then if it benefits me, it generally benefits everybody else if I'm showing up better. So for me, positive intelligence is having your mind, having your mindset working in a way that benefits you.
So, do you also have a systems based approach towards this? We talked about a system as a plan that is already there in an app in a workout. But what about mindset? Because so many of us ruminate over the past and there's imposter syndrome and there's fear. Does the positive intelligence methodology incorporate some systems based in there as well?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I have this engineering background, right? I'm an engineer. Now here I am being a coach and working with people on positive intelligence and emotional intelligence and relationships and things. But the systems approach is one that I resonate with. So yes, in positive intelligence, we start off by looking at what's going on in our mind with our thinking. And we see that that negative thinking loop, which we call the judge. A lot of us have this judging voice. You're not good enough. Steve, you shouldn't be here doing this. Steve, you've got no right to be walking into this room of souls. Who are you to think that you can do this, right? We all, as entrepreneurs and leaders, have that judging voice, right? And there are lots of different sub voices in and around that, if you like, as well, like one we call a controller, right? And that controller voice in our mind might be not wanting to have new creative ideas coming into the business because we've got to just keep on doing the things that we want to do, right? Another voice might be a hyper-achieving voice. You're not doing enough. Come on, Steve, you should be staying up all night and running faster and jumping higher and learning more because you should be further ahead, right? These are just voices in our heads. So the system is to recognize when this is happening, right? To be able to see our thinking. And starts off with self-command to be able to intercept what's going on, and then to have the self-command to be able to hit pause and to be able to shift the way we're thinking. In the positive intelligence program, we've got a whole bunch of different techniques for that, but one of them is you just get out of your mind and get into your body. So we take two fingertips and just start rubbing them together, and you really focus in on the texture and the quality of the skin as you're rubbing these two fingers together. And it just gets you out of that mental loop and gets you to just focus on something. And just do that for a little bit, and then you've interrupted, right, the negative thought pattern. Then, having interrupted the negative thought pattern, having seen it, then we start using a bunch of different techniques, once again, systems, to be able to try to find what we call the positive sage mind that helps us work our way through the problem in a more beneficial way. One of them is starting off with empathy for myself. This is a difficult situation you're dealing with, Steve, right? It's okay to feel a little bit scared or afraid at the moment. A normal person would be doing that, right? To have empathy for yourself. Have empathy for others, right? I'm trying to understand why somebody's reacting in a certain way. Maybe they're having a hard day right now, right? That sort of thing. And then we come up with ways of changing the way we view a situation. A very powerful method that comes from PQ is to really essentially see that there is a gift or an opportunity in every situation. Now, it might not be immediately apparent, right? We've got something going sideways on us right now. You might be triggered, right? All of these things, but we just interrupt it. And then we can just say, okay, I don't know what it is, but I believe that there is a gift or an opportunity in this situation. And I can see if I can, and just from that basis, then you can start seeing, I can turn this around. Major client cancels their contract or something like that. It's, oh my gosh, we're going to be down 25% revenue. That can send any business leader into a state of panic, right? But that doesn't help, right? When we've flipped our lid and when we're triggered. So we need to be able to get into a more positive frame of mind and say, okay, this is the situation. I don't have to like it. I accept that this is happening. There's going to be a gift and an opportunity in this somehow, and we're going to figure that out and move forward. And that's just such a more positive way to be able to get out of a tough situation. So to answer your question, yes, it's a systems approach, and you can work your way through empathy and being able to see the gift and to move forward.
As engineers, we like building things. We also like fixing things. How do you balance providing solutions while empowering clients to navigate their own challenge? Because that balance, that's hard to maintain.
Yes. And so the way I tackle that, it is a difficult balance, but it's part of my training as a coach. And very specifically within EOS, within the Entrepreneurial Operating System, we are very clear that we're not consultants to an organization. We're coaches. In fact, we're teachers, facilitators, and coaches. And there are times when if I find myself leaning towards the consultant side of things, I can notice that, pull myself back and just move into a coaching mode and ask questions. Do you think is that strategy that you're putting together, is that if you play it forward, do you think that's going to get you the results that you're looking for? Is this initiative, is this hire that you're looking for going to truly get you what you want? I can just ask questions that way instead of coming in and telling somebody something, because I think it's so much more powerful, right? If the teams that I'm working with, if I ask the question and then they come up with the answers, it's their answers, they own it, it's their business, right? And that's how we learn. And in EOS, we definitely learn quarter by quarter because, as I'm saying, we take these priorities to build the future business. We get to the end of the quarter and we look back and did it work or not? What did you learn? It's the biggest question I ask my teams every 90 days. What have you learned from the last quarter? Let's get that written down because you're a learning organization and we can build and grow.
If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be and why?
I think this is a good question. I've reflected on this a bit over the last few months, and I'm still working on it, my answer. I'm still working on enacting the answer that I'm going to give you, and that is to let go and trust the flow of life. I think, as I talked before about these judging voices, right? I have this dose of controller in my mind. I used to be a project manager, right? Project managers are really good. When you take the controller voice in a good way, the good side of it is we get stuff done. We get projects delivered on time, on budget, right? And satisfies customers. When it goes too far, it becomes holding on too tight and wanting things to be a certain way. And so learning to let go and trust the flow of life, to be able to see that, okay, when I change jobs or lose a client or something like that, there's a gift in that, right? And so I don't think I've always known that, and or at least internalized that, but that's what I would tell my younger self, is just trust the flow of life.
Steve, it's often rare that we come across people who are multidisciplinary. And I think what really makes you good at your job as a coach is that you're an engineer who was an individual performer, but also worked with high performing teams, and you were a project manager, and you're so much into personal development and know how to shape your mind and help others shape their mind and look beyond just the mere tactics of getting things done. It's uncanny the type of results that you bring for your clients as a coach. How can the audience member connect with you? How can they work with you? Any last words for our audience members?
For your kind words, Mark. We've had this conversation, and I love the things that you've pulled together from my experience. And so there's a number of different ways. Firstly, of course, I have my website, stevemorris.com. On my website, I have this course, the Morning of Distinction course, right? And it's just a great place for somebody to start, right? If you're finding like you're waking up and your system for the day is not working for you, please go see my course. It's free. You don't have to pay anything for it. It's 10 modules, but each of them are very short, 5 minutes each. So it's an hour's worth of content, but it can really, I think, really deal with a lot of the low hanging fruit in terms of getting going with a great day. So if that resonates, then of course, I'm always available to just have a talk with somebody and just like, what's going on? What's working in your life? What's not working? What would you like? How do you want your life to feel? In EOS, we talk about this EOS life, which is doing work you love with people that you love, making a dent in the universe, getting compensated appropriately, and having time for other passions. And so I always start having conversations with my clients and my entrepreneurs around that. Are you doing the work you love? Do you have people around you that you really love? Are you doing important work that really gets you up every morning because you want to make a dent in the use? You're getting enough from the business, right, for all of your effort. And then, as I said, that fifth point is, what else are you doing, right? Because we're not single-pointed working in the business 80 hours a week. Nobody has that epitaph on their tombstone that says, I wish I'd spent more time at the office, right? When we really get down to it, it's that time for other passions, family, health, relationships, giving back to the community. And to be able to look at this lens, have a conversation about it, that's where I start. And then we can come up with a tailored program from there as to, do you want to work with the leadership team? Then we'll do EOS. Do you want to work individually? Then we'll do positive intelligence and go from there.
Love it. Steve, it's an honor and a pleasure meeting you and getting to talk to you. Thank you so much for being on the show. I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a great conversation.
Same here.